Hey everyone, Shin here. So I want to give you all an update on what's going on with HAMtastic. A number of you have been asking if there have been any new updates or if there's a new version or anything like that. There are some changes I've made since the 5.0 version that I put out last summer, but I can't say this is a new version. This isn't 6.0 or anything. This is just an update for you all on what I've been using for it. With how warrior balance has been since I came up with the 5.0 version, it's kind of forced all of the Hammer Greatsword builds to kind of funnel into the same similar trait setup and gearing setup and whatnot. So I don't feel comfortable claiming it as any sort of special version of HAMtastic because it's so similar to a lot of the other more standard Hammer Greatsword builds that are out there right now. There are some changes, but it's very similar to stuff you're probably already familiar with. Also, a little bit of bad news for you folks who really like using HAMtastic in PvP. With how the ranked meta is right now, Hammer Greatsword, in my opinion, doesn't really hold up as well as, say, Axe Shield Greatsword or the Wildfire build that I came up with recently. It just doesn't have the survivability to maintain itself in any sort of major fight on a point. It's very touch and go as far as how well it works in PvP at the moment. So I'm going to be the bearer of bad news and say for now, stay away from using HAMtastic in PvP. You'll die a lot. It would be using the Berserker Amulet. You can try using it with Paladins or Marauders. I've tried both. They don't feel like they add enough survivability, and they definitely feel like they cut down on too much damage. So that's where I'm going to leave the PvP side of things. However, on the World v World side of things, it still works perfectly fine. I'll go over what I use in the World v World version in just a sec here. So those of you who like using it in World v World, you're still safe. It's still valid for that. Alright, so for what the build uses in World v World, it's still Greatsword and Hammer, as you would expect. For the utilities, it still uses Healing Signet, Balance Stance, and Endure Pain. However, unlike the 5.0 version, now it uses Berserker Stance and Rampage for the final two slots. For the traits, it still uses Strength, Defense, and Discipline, just as it did before. If you do not have Heart of Thorns, you can run this build no problem. It uses Peak Performance, Forceful Greatsword, and Berserker's Power up in Strength, Dogged March, Defy Pain, and Last Stand in Defense, and Warrior Sprint, Brawler's Recovery, and Heightened Focus in Discipline. Alright, for the gearing in World v World, most of the stuff is the same as the 5.0 version. You still want to use full Berserker, everything, armor, weapons, trinkets. But your runes for your armor are going to be different. Instead of using Holbrack, like the 5.0 version, you want to use Strength now. I've noticed conditions haven't really been that big of a thing in World v World roaming. I haven't noticed many problems with them. So you can feel free to go full damage with the Strength runes, get all the more might, all the more damage, etc., etc. You also have the new resistance from Berserker Stance that will keep any Connie bombs off of you, and if you need it, you can also pop Healing Signet for that extra bit of resistance, but for the most part, conditions aren't really that bad. For your Greatsword sigils, they are still Air and Hydromancy as before. However, the Hammer now has Leeching and Fire instead of the previous set. I found that the Fire sigil will proc on stealth targets wherever they happen to be when you hit them with an AoE, so you can better find stealth targets who may be hiding around you, say a thief from Shadow Refuge, from getting that Fire proc to show up wherever they happen to be standing. Alright guys, and that's pretty much it for this update to HAMtastic. This is basically the old 4.0 version brought into the new trait system. It's not really all that different from a lot of other Hammer Greatsword builds flying around out there right now just because of how balance is. It kind of funneled all the Hammer Greatsword builds into one general setup, so I don't really feel comfortable calling it a 6.0 version, but still wanted to give you guys an update on what I've been using with it when I go roaming. Still works just fine in World v World. It's unfortunate it doesn't work in PvP, but that's whatever. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this version or the 5.0 version if you're still running around with that. I would assume the 5.0 will still work just as well as it did. So if you really like that version, give it a shot. Let me know if it does or doesn't work, if you do decide to stick with the 5.0. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next video or around the stream. Take care.